Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 15th episode of Conversations with T. This is T herself, and today's guest is none other than Coach Key. She's been featured in my podcast several times in the past, and we've discussed several topics together, such as social media, generational trauma, fitting in, and productivity. For those of you who don't know, Coach Key is a healing and self-development coach who specializes in trauma. She has experience in mentoring, coaching, and problem solving for Black women as well as women of color. She also has her podcast show called Keyona Speaks. I'm really excited to have another great discussion with her, and I hope you guys benefit from what we're going to talk about today. So, how have you been, Coach?
I've been really good, really busy. Not so much on the coaching side, but life is good, alhamdulillah. How have you been?
I've been quite busy these days, but I've been great, thank you.
I'm really excited to jump into another very candid conversation that will really get, not just myself thinking, but, inshallah, the listeners thinking as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. For today's episode, we're going to focus on the topics of victim mindset and self-accountability. I actually want to say a lot about them, and I think you do as well. I'm just going to go ahead and say that the victim mindset can make someone very toxic. This is not to say that their negative feelings or experiences are invalid, but constantly putting the blame on other people or complaining about how unfair so-and-so was is draining when they don't even want to move on and make things better for themselves. What do you think?
I agree. I think at times too much energy is placed on what happened to us that we use our own free will to imprison ourselves or rehabilitate ourselves. So like you said, that we don't think of, okay, what can I do with the control that I have to move forward? Yes, what happened to me was terrible. Yes, I'm upset. Yes, I'm frustrated about it. Yes, I'm depressed. Whatever emotion a person wants to attach to that experience, they're validated in that. But with the victim mindset is, do you allow yourself to suffer to the experience, or do you pick yourself up and you move forward? That's where the healthy part of healing comes from, when you see, yes, I am a victim to this, but I'm not going to allow myself to stay in that victim situation. I'm going to prevail. I'm going to triumph the situation. I'm going to move forward. And when you come across people who are constantly nitpicking what happened to them, it's because they want someone to validate them, or they have this entitlement of someone owes me because this happened to me. But in the real world, no one's walking around with a checklist of, I owe you, I owe you, I owe you. So it's our responsibility to ask ourselves, okay, well, how am I going to move past this traumatic experience? Am I going to succumb to it, or am I going to survive and thrive from it?
Exactly. I just find it unfair that when people want to advise them or ask a simple, why did you do such and such, in a non-judgmental way, they get super emotional and they're quick to accuse other people of shaming them in inverted commas. It's as if they're saying that the entire world revolves around them and no one therefore has a right to question their motives, which is a pretty immature way of thinking, to be honest. Okay, yeah, maybe there are some people out there who are pretty harsh and they may end up saying things in a manner that's not appropriate, but what about those people who actually want to help, those people who actually care? The people with the victim mindset need to understand that not everyone is out to get them if they disagree with some of the things that they say or do, or just point out their mistakes. People advise us because they care about us, and it's not the other way around. Even if we don't agree with the advice that's given to us, and I get it, yeah, not every advice is valid. It's still our responsibility to be polite. We thank them, and we then calmly explain why we don't agree with such and such, and that's it. It's really that simple.
All right. And I think it takes discernment to be able to tell if a person is questioning from a place of judgment, or if they're questioning from a place of trying to understand. If I'm trying to understand your experience and what you went through, because I want to be of some sort of resource or help to, help you to, free yourself and start to heal, then of course I'm going to ask the who, what, when, where, and why. And like you mentioned, if the person is not comfortable, if they say I'm really not comfortable talking about that, then I'm not gonna push it. But for people who have been victimized, to assume that everyone is quote unquote out to get them, or not trying to understand them, or trying to judge them, that means that they feel shameful, or the people around them, the closest people around them, have made them feel very shameful about what happened to them. You'll find, the sensitivity of this, especially when it comes to sexual assault. When people are sexually assaulted, and people are trying to figure out what happened, because we live in a society, I know in the society that I live in, victims are always blamed. She dressed this way. She was in this particular environment. We don't really focus on, teaching people not to put their hands on people, or et cetera, et cetera. So because the society naturally wants to blame the victim for why they got victimized, people are naturally walking around very sensitive, because they already have this perception of no one cares about me, no one wants to help me, no one wants to understand me, they just want to blame me because of what happened to me. And I feel like now we're in a time where the society is still alive and thriving, but there are people who are changing their mindset to say, no, I'm not going to blame you. I want to understand what happened to you, but I also want to push you and hold you accountable for not allowing yourself to be stuck in that experience, but instead to say, okay, this happened to me, but it's not going to control me. My life is not over. This is what I'm going to do about it. There are so many people that have taken their situations and have gone out to advocate against it, gone out to spread awareness, gone out to help so many people who felt like they were under the rug and not seen. And so those are the people who said, I'm no longer going to just lay down in this victim mindset. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen to somebody else, or whoever else it happened to, that they are seen and they are heard, and that they survive as well. So it's the mindset really can either keep you stuck, or it can pull you out that rut. It's just however you want to take it.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that practicing self-accountability is empowerment. The more responsibility you take towards becoming a better person or improving your life, the more independent you will become from other people. And I just find that beautiful, honestly. Playing the blame game, on the other hand, it makes you emotionally weak, and you end up losing the sense of control, and that's dangerous, because you would then basically give the wrong people a green light to take advantage of you, and that's never a good thing.
I agree. And in America, we have a serious issue with mass shootings, whether it's in schools, grocery stores, what have you. And when you look, when the story comes out of the person who has, committed that mass shooting, normally it's them taking their frustration out because something happened to them. And that's another thing about the victim mindset, is that instead of seeing it as something happened to me and I want to become better from it, there are people that say something happened to me and I want everybody to feel how I feel. So I'm going out with vengeance. I'm going out being spiteful. I'm going out to hurt people, make them like, I want people to hurt how I hurt. And that's the downside and the dangerous side of the victim mindset as well, is that if a person goes too much to the extreme of staying in that victim mindset, is that they not only will harm themselves, but they want to harm other people, because they don't know what to do with that energy of the victim mindset of, okay, I feel some type of way because this happened to me. I don't know what to do with it except for to use it in an evil, negative way. And so that's what I'm going to do. And tying into what you said about accountability, they're not taking accountability to get themselves out the situation. So instead, they're using their control that they think that they don't have to actually inflict harm. And that's very dangerous.
It's heartbreaking, actually. I just wish that more people could start taking responsibility. This is not to say that doing so is the same thing as blaming everything on yourself. It's really not. People who don't want to change for their own good, I wouldn't say that they're fine with it, but they become accustomed to living a very dysfunctional life as well as being toxic, right?
Right. And I want to be really clear at it, when I say take accountability, I know it's a case by case situation. There are certain situations that are very contextual. Someone would be listening and say, well, I was minding my business, walking down the street, going to school, going wherever, and someone literally came out of nowhere, chased me, grabbed me, whatever. And so there are situations where like literally it's not a person's fault. When we say taking accountability, what we're saying is what you do with what happened to you, that is your responsibility. You are accountable for how you live and change your life based on that situation. And there are people who don't understand it that way. And so instead, they use that entitlement with their victimization to live dysfunctional, to be toxic, to be harmful. And what we're saying is no, just because someone did something to you that harmed you, just because you became a victim to something, doesn't mean that now you have the green card, the green light to go out and do the same thing. No, now you need to take accountability and say, I don't like what happened to me. I don't want what happened to me to happen again. Shoot, I don't want what happened to me to happen to somebody else that I care about or don't know. So what am I going to do now to hold myself accountable to, push through the situation, to heal? Am I going to hold myself accountable to get help? Am I going to hold myself accountable to tell my family about that family member that did that one thing to me? Am I going to hold myself accountable when I see someone else being abused the way that I was and I'm going to stand up for them? Am I going to hold myself accountable for, really trying to prosper through this situation? That's what we're talking about. So I hope that the listeners really understand that when we say accountability, it's not saying, yeah, I was in the wrong for being in the situation that I got in. It's contextual. We don't know your situation, listeners. But when we say accountability, it's all about, are you going to choose to suffer and to succumb to what happened to you? Or are you going to say, no, today I'm going to stand up and I'm going to survive and thrive through it. And I'm going to become better and I'm going to help someone else that went through it. Because the later reason, surviving and thriving, is going to make you feel so much better versus succumbing to it is you're really going to suffer. You're really going to, I don't want to be dramatic, but when we stay in a victim mindset, it's hurting our body. It's slowly, killing us because of that stress on our heart, that stress on our organs. And so who wants to live the rest of their life hurting themselves because they can't let go of what happened to them? They have to hold on to them. They've attached it to their identity. Instead of saying, this does not define me, this does not make who I am, this does not control the rest of my life, and I'm going to move past it.
Exactly. We tell you to hold yourself into account because we care about you and we want to see you get better. We want you to heal. We want you to become stronger than you were before. And we're definitely not here to judge or bring you down. Some people may not want to see you thrive, but they're not everyone. There are others out there who want good for you, and that's the truth.
Yes. And I want to add that what really sparked me to get into the coaching space that I did is because I was raised by someone who had been victimized and really didn't have that support. No one truly saw this person. No one truly came to this person's rescue. And so I saw how the lack of support, the lack of advocacy and the fight that people didn't have for this person, how they really have molded their identity based on what happened to them. And they look at the world from a very tainted, painful lens. And they have an entitled behavior when things don't go their way, or when, like, for example, if something happened to me, it's kind of like this competition of who got damaged worse. And I'm not trying to compete with anybody. Your trauma is your trauma, and it's not greater or lesser than my trauma. No one's out here trying to play the dozens with trauma. But I realized at an early age that it was hard to go to that person for support, or it was hard to let that person know how they had hurt me because they still were holding on to how someone hurt them and never took accountability for how they were hurt. And so I just noticed, okay, if everyone in the world behaved this way based on some type of trauma, whether it's big trauma, small trauma, whatever trauma, we wouldn't really be peaceful, enjoyable people. We would be always comparing, also always trying to one up each other or put each other down. And it's and I was like, no, I don't want to be that type of person. And I want to help other people, whether it's the same trauma as my caretaker or something else. I want to help them to not get stuck in that, because it's painful to see someone you love tie their whole identity around a trauma and, take the joy out of life because they're still living in that hurt.
Yeah, exactly. You want to know something? I I came across a statement a while back and it was honestly so profound. Basically, the person said that whenever you point a finger at someone else, know that three of your fingers are pointing right back at you. And I was like, whoa, that is deep, right?
Yes, I remember it being in elementary school, being in primary school, and teachers would tell us that. And it would make you think, like, before I cast a stone, let me not think that I don't live in a glass house. And that's true. That's that part of accountability that we've been talking about. When you're pointing that finger, you have to check yourself and ask yourself, what stuff do you have with you? What's
Mm,
going on with you before you cast a judgment, before you attack somebody. And when you know that you have your own stuff, in a way, it humbles you to
mm,
have a little bit of compassion. And something that I've talked about, I'm not sure on your podcast, but definitely on my podcast and with clients, is that everybody has a story. Something has
exactly.
always happened. Something has happened to many of us.
Mm,
And when you interact with people and they behave a certain way, and instead of asking yourself, what's wrong with that person, you ask yourself, what happened to that person? Will you then
exactly.
be able to take a step back and say, okay, it's not them, it's a reaction of something that happened to them. And if I
Mm,
get the opportunity to figure out what that is, maybe I can soften up towards them and maybe they can soften up towards me and we can get past whatever issue we have. But if we
mm,
always go at things on what in the world is wrong with you, there goes that shame, there goes that guilt that we place on people, and we keep people stifled into something's wrong with me because something happened to me, instead of, you know, it's not me, it's just something happened to me, and I just have to figure out how to strip that away from off of me, and to move on with my day.
Yeah, I just wish that more people could keep this in mind. It's really easy to make a bunch of assumptions about someone when we come across them for the very first time, but we don't know their story. We don't see the bigger picture. Feeling judged, it's not a nice thing to experience. It can lead to a downhill in someone's self-esteem. And that would affect the way they see themselves as well as their ability to build relationships with other people, right?
Right. What I found is that the biggest thing to people is to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel safe and validated. When a
Mm,
person is able to check off those boxes, you'll see a change in them. If you even think
yeah.
about children in schools, children that may have delinquent type of behavior, they may not be a delinquent child. They may be a sweetheart beneath that core. But
Mm,
if they have been taught to believe that if I act out, this is the only way I'm going to get attention, then of course they're going to act
valid.
out. But if they get
Valid.
that teacher that sees them, that really, really sees them, they will
That's
have a
also,
change in behavior.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. That would have a very big impact on them. Yeah.
mhm. And that's the thing. We live in this globalized society with social media. We have the most access to each other than we have had in decades. Yet
Mm,
we still use this beautiful thing called the internet to tear each other down. I've been on social media, not really using it, but more so as a consumer. And I see posts and I go to the comment section and I just look at the comment section and I ask myself, why would I ever post anything about my personal life if people have, number one, the entitlement to say whatever is the first thought on their mind. Two, they're being hurtful, they're trolling. It's just like there are hurt people out there, and you see these hurt people when you're engaging on social media and you're seeing the things that people are saying. It's
hurt,
really, really sad. It's really sad.
hurt people hurt people.
They do. They really,
Yeah.
really do.
Mm-hmm. All right, Coach Key, thank you for joining me today. I had a wonderful time having this discussion with you, and I hope the rest of your day goes well. Thank you, and take really good care of yourself.